Again, as always, Kendall and I are blind to each other's answers. We don't know what each of us have picked for stock up and stock down. We'll start with the good. We'll start with the stock up. Again, we'll start with our number 2. So Kendall, give me your number 2 group that is trending upwards at the quarter mark of the season here.
My number 2 group is the linebackers. I think the linebackers are playing incredibly well. I think obviously Milano hasn't really skipped a beat. I think he's come off everything that he's done the past few years in Buffalo.
He's been undervalued and overlooked I feel from a national
past
perspective.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, not this year, but
last year you started to see that national spotlight start to be placed on him, especially on broadcast. You start to see some color commentators be like, yeah, I watched him on all 22. He pops every play.
Yep. And you're getting some of the hyperbole statements of being like, he's one of the best linebackers in the league and arguably the best coverage linebacker. Right. And like that being said granted, you've also got national people like Dan Orlovsky saying the Bills have one of the best screen games in football. Right. So
hyperbole is very prevalent in this.
But it's cool to see him get that, shine, even if it may be inaccurate. I do think that's more accurate than saying the Buffalo Bills have one of the best screen games, but I digress.
It probably is. But yeah, so obviously, Milano's kind of picked up where he's left off, obviously still improved marginally from last season and seasons before, but I think he looks really good this year in terms of filling the run, in terms of getting in the right gaps, but also shooting that gap. I think he's doing a really good job of, getting his body in between the 2 defenders or his 2 teammates, but then not just getting there positionally, then shooting through there and trying to reduce the amount of yards that the offense is getting on any run play. I think that's
trying to create negative plays.
Yeah, it's you do see him. I feel like in the past you used to see Milano either shoot the gap or stay patient and wait for the play to come to him. Now he's living in this middle ground where he's filling that run gap, and then once he feels like he's broken down enough and he's waited long enough, then he shoots through and tries to make a play on it.
Clicks and close.
Exactly. And then obviously everyone's favorite poster child in the linebacker group, Tremaine Edmonds.
Polarizing man. Well, not anymore. Now that guy is Zach Moss.
Yeah, not anymore. I think a lot of people have quieted down on that, rightfully so. Tremaine has had an incredible start to the season.
A tremendous start.
A tremendous start. I should have used that. That was poor execution. Yeah,
fruit. Just grab it. Just pluck it.
It was really bad. So he's done excellent. I think the one play that really screams out to me this past week, there was a boot action towards the bottom of the screen, and he stayed flowing side to side with Lamar as Lamar was rolling out on the boot action. But then at a certain moment, he just knew to get some more depth along with his width, and it took away the deep crosser behind him without even identifying him with his eyes or anything. He just understands the concept. Okay, there's a boot action. He's rolling out to his right. There's probably a deep over behind me or a dig or something behind me that's crossing the field from the backside of the play. And it's going to be, I need to get some depth so I can shrink that passing window down. I think he's been better in that regards. And then obviously what he's been doing in the run game. I think a lot of people slept on what he was doing in the run game even last year and the year before, but I think he's definitely improved on even what he's done the past few years in that regard. Like we talked about last night in the film room, he's attacking these blockers that are coming at him with better angles, either to set up his teammates or set himself up to stack that block, shed it, and make a play. So I think he's gotten better in both pass and run defense, and I think it's gone a long way for this defense at the second level. And honestly, I should probably include Teron Johnson. I don't have notes on him, but I probably should include Teron Johnson in the linebacker group.
Very fair. He literally lines up in the box and plays strong side linebacker at times. I'll just go with it now. Linebackers were my number 1.
I'll just go with it now. Okay.
Just go with it now. Because it makes no sense to be like, well, let me talk about linebackers later. Like you mentioned, they were my number 1, although I wrestled with my 1 and my 2. I just think Edmonds and Milano are playing at such a high level, both versus the run, which you can give some credit to the defensive line for the revamping in terms of personnel and also in terms of a little bit of technique and scheme. Them, we talked about it last night in the film room, them playing a little more gap and a half, occupying blockers and double teams a little bit more, or in the case of Brandon Bryant on that goal line stand, occupying 3 blockers and letting those linebackers to play free. You just see tackles for loss. You see plays in coverage, a multitude of things that, again, I think a lot of people are talking about how the defensive line has unlocked Edmonds a bit and Milano to a degree, but then you also see what they're doing in coverage, and that is all on them. Tremaine Edmonds has had multiple reps this year. Yeah, 13 says it. Both linebackers are on another level right now. You've seen Tremaine Edmonds just have certain reps where he bites on the play action like he's supposed to, because that's what the Bills teach. They don't sit in the grass when they see run action. They take steps forward. They honor the run. He had the first one, maybe it's against the Rams. No, it's against Tennessee. It's against Tennessee. It's on the Jordan Poyer interception that Edmonds gets a piece of, Hyde deflects it, and then Poyer picks it. Edmonds bites on the run, comes forward this way, sees that it's play action, turns to his left, like Zoolander, turn left, locates the deep over, similar to the play you were talking about earlier in Baltimore, where he kind of feels it, locates the deep over, and then takes the angle to cut it off, and he cuts it off. Then he uses his pterodactyl wings to get a piece of it on a good throw from Tannehill, deflects it past the receiver, Hyde deflects it, Poyer intercepts it. There's been multiple reps like that this year where he just, his angle, whether in the run game or in coverage, has been so much better. And that's something for me that's been a huge, huge thing of a huge area of inconsistency for him in his game, in my evaluation of him. Inconsistent angles to the football, usually in the run game more than the pass. But this year, he's taking good angles to the football. And I think a lot of it has to do, with him being cleaner in the run game, from the defensive line. But in coverage, he is just pinpoint location. And he's in that role, in that match coverage role for this Bills defense, where he's got to, be that wall player in the middle, or in the Tampa 2, he's got to carry anybody splitting those safety. Doesn't matter if they're a tight end or if they're a speedy receiver, he's got to carry them. Angles are so important. Hand technique and athleticism and awareness are so important. He's shining like in a variety of ways this year. And Matt Milano is up there with him. Both of these guys, Matt Milano, his average depth of tackle this year is 1.5. Tremaine Edmonds' average depth of tackle is 2.4, which is,
I believe off my head, I think that's already up from last year's numbers.
Both of them are way up. Yeah. Lower, but yes, up in that's better and lower in terms of
up in terms of positivity.
Which you see it on its own, and you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. But even more so considering what's asked of them in this defense, because they are a nickel defense, because they are a light box defense, because they are a drop 7 into coverage type of defense. They're usually the conflict defenders. And I'm not just talking like RPOs or things like that. I'm talking the conflict defenders of they have to live in the light and the dark. They have to honor the run and play the run. And they also have to be responsible in coverage in the middle of the field, in arguably the most dangerous part of the field, especially for a variety of players, especially for a game last week against someone like Lamar Jackson, who 40.9% of his throws come in the middle of the field between deep, intermediate, and short. He attacks that middle all day. Their coverage responsibilities in man and zone, their pursuit to the football, their playmaking ability. You're seeing both of them create turnovers. You're seeing both of them knife into the backfield, create tackles for loss, create havoc, whether they're finishing the play and making a tackle or being a disruptor, forcing it to someone else to create a tackle for a loss. They're taking the football away. They're making splash plays. They're sound in coverage in both man and zone. They're making physical, violent, forceful plays on the football in a variety of ways. I'm just hugely impressed with both of them. I've been big on Matt Milano for a while. If you look at the coverage metrics, he's literally since 2017, 2018, he's been one of the best coverage. Yes. He's unreal in man and zone. And I know some people like to knock him. But he got beat by Travis Kelce in overtime, so we can't cover
Everyone
anybody.
Gets beat by Travis Kelce.
Correct. I'm not here for that narrative. But Tremaine Edmonds really is the big one. I think you're still going to get some people who deny the prophecy of Tremaine Edmonds.
The prophecy that was foretold.
That prophecy that was foretold. Yeah. He's starting to look like that guy that I think a lot of people anticipated. Now, I think a lot of people expected this type of play from him in year 3, which would have gotten a lot of people off his back, but better late than never. And actually, it's not even late, because not even to make this joke, he's still 14 years old or whatever he is. It's unreal, the jump that I think he's already taken. And I think a lot of it is mental and the ease of, you see him starting to read and react more. You see him start to just, oh, cool, there it is, bang, fire my gun, shoot the gap, click and close, detonate. He's
a lot less hesitation.
Yes. The one that really got me too, that I think really clued me in, again, there were several reps against the Rams, but there was, again, that coverage rep against Tennessee that I talked about, and then also a tackle on Derrick Henry. Milano disrupts it and knifes into the backfield and kind of makes Henry stumble a bit, but Henry goes to stiff arm Edmonds. Edmonds chops it down.
I remember that.
Wraps him, and then reaches, as he wraps him up and brings him down forcefully, he reaches around with his left arm and tries to punch the ball out. Like the simultaneous physical and technical nature of that tackle. Yeah. I was just like, is this guy putting stuff together? And we've seen him continue to play solid. Yeah. I think, and it was tough for, my number one and the number two in terms of what position groups are stock up. But yeah, the linebackers, Edmonds and Milano, are just both having phenomenal years and are both, unlocking a lot for this defense. And I think you've seen the Bills be able to weather the storm of Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde and what's going on in the interior. One, because the guys who have stepped in have played well. You have to give them credit.
Yeah.
But the stars in other areas are picking up the slack. Jordan Poyer, Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, and then Milano and Edmonds, who are not, knock on wood, do not come off the field ever. Yeah. Poyer's missed a game. Milano and Edmonds have been there every game. Groot rotates. Von Miller rotates. Milano and Edmonds don't. They're on the field, knock on wood, almost every single snap. And so, to the moon for both of them right now. Very, 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 very
I know we could do literally a whole show on this, but you think Edmonds has earned his extension? Or do you think there's money available to even do this? Just a quick answer, because I know it's
I would pay him his average annual value now. His average annual value puts him in like the contract range of
like Miles Jack's range, right?
Like the Miles Jack range. And so I will pay what you're getting from Miles Jack. I will pay Tremaine Edmonds. My worry is the level he's playing at. If it continues, I could see someone just being like, yo, bro, you want $20 million a year, especially if he continues this play and the Bills make a run, like a championship type run. I could see somebody trying to revamp their defense by breaking the bank for Tremaine Edmonds. And I'm not saying that's right. I don't think, even if he has a great year this year, I do not think he should be paid in the realm of the Warners and the Leonards. But given his size, his athleticism, his youth, and also
still potential to grow.
Correct. Like he could see another big contract after this one. And this is also a key point too, that I think people don't also necessarily consider. He's highly regarded amongst other teams and coaches. Yeah. And it's not just like general coach speak. Like you listen to Bill Belichick, you listen to Robert Saleh, guys who know defense, they think Tremaine Edmonds is fantastic. And like, I could see him getting a payday somewhere else. I always wanted Tremaine to stay. I don't want to break the bank for him. I still don't even know if they can.
Exactly.
But if his average annual value right now, which before the season was like 13.4, roughly, I would be very comfortable.
I would jump at 13.4 right now.
Yeah, I would take it because he looks like he's to the moon and it's only going to get higher.
Yeah.
And now we move even higher on your list. I think I know it's going to be number one for you. Definitely kicker. But actually, that's not even a joke. Tyler Bass, well, he missed one kick, but he's fine.
Missed one. Yeah, that's the thing.
Stock down. Terrible. Yeah. Sell. So who's your number one? Can I guess it?
Yeah.
Defensive line.
Yeah. And it's because I think, like last night, shout out DF Forever on the comment last night in the film room, got my mind turning on this, where I think the linebackers, obviously we talk about it all off season and the idea of getting Tremaine better, and a way to do that is get help on the defensive line, keep the linebackers clean at the second level, allow them to play fast, run fast, make plays, all that stuff. So I do think the reason I had linebackers at number 2 is because their stock up has been influenced by the stock up of the defensive line.
That's what tore me, where I was like, but because they've been playing so good in coverage, which is on them,
which is
the reason. I kept them
no dependent variables there. It is on them to make plays. I think the defensive line, because of what they've done in pass rushing situations, and then especially what they just showed this last week against the Ravens in run stopping situations, they've been fantastic in all accounts. I mean, in terms of pressures, you see Von Miller and Groot tied for the top at 14 total pressures right now through 4 games, which is just nuts. Combined for 8, and then next 2 is Boogie and Jordan Phillips at 8. So everyone is getting work in terms of getting to the quarterback. And then even Daquan Jones is getting into the mix. We talked about this offline.
Yeah.
Like, this was a signing I don't want to say low on, but I was lower on than I am right now because I was hype about the Daquan Jones signing because I thought it would elevate Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano in the run game. Daquan Jones has been doing a lot in the pass game. He's been looping a lot on stunts and twists. He's been affecting the quarterback in terms of compressing the pocket, getting interior pressure, not just on those twists and stunt games. He's been doing a lot in terms of pass rush as well. I just think the defensive line has been everything we wanted and more. And I think a lot of it does stem from that root cause of adding another weapon like Von Miller and making those offensive lines and offensive coordinators have to try to reduce his effect as best as they can and game plan for him, which opens up avenues for other guys. And keep in mind, think about how well this defensive line has played. And we've been, struck by injuries at the defensive line and how much the depth has really shown here. Like Shaq Lawson has stepped up multiple times.
Prince I think Brandon Bryant, like
exactly practice squad players. Epinessa's
the regular depth guys, let alone like the depth guys
of the depth
squad. Yeah, the depth
for
the depth.
The money ball level. Yeah, there's this guy, then there's 3 layers of depth, and then there's this guy.
Nice. Way to translate it. I like that.
But yeah, they've just been fantastic, and I don't want to shortchange the linebackers at all, but I do think both of them obviously impact the games from pass to run, but I think because the defensive line, they're helping each other out in run and pass, where the linebackers, they need some help from the defensive line in the run game. So I think a lot of the defensive line success is really just dependent on other defensive linemen's success. So that's why I kept them as number 1. They've been really everything advertised and more. I think it's been money well spent this past offseason. Probably the first time for Brandon Beane that money has been well spent on the defensive line additions in the offseason.
Like, that's a good point. Like, it's been multiple years. Like, it's like, it was Quentin Jefferson and Vernon Butler and Mario Addison and all these guys who they made, a
concerted effort to be good on the defensive line. Yeah.
And they just could not. Real quick, I want to answer this question from Steven. He says, running game, whose fault? Scheme, blocking, the backs, who is most culpable? Kendall and I have talked about this in a variety of ways. We both lean more towards it being the offensive line, being an O-line issue than a running back issue. But both are definitely culpable. If I had to put a percent on it, I don't know what you do. I'd probably say like 60-40 O-line, roughly.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more O-line, but not much.
Yeah, I'll say I could push it to like 65-35.
Yeah.
O-line. The biggest thing, Steven, is like I've said it so much, but I think it's a really good way to put it. Neither the offensive line or the running backs are good enough to elevate the other. So both have to be right and both have to be both have to be right and both have to be working correctly in order to get things to achieve success. And that's a hard way to win, when you have to have both groups winning in order to have something like positive happen, because neither is good enough to elevate the other. Very good question. Yeah, this defensive line, we talked about it. We broke it down in the film room last night, how they're fitting the run, the violence, the aggression, the physicality, the little bit of gap and a half that they're playing, the ability to generate pressure, this is a great tweet from earlier in the day from Matt Williamson. The 49ers are the only defense that creates a sack at a higher percentage of opposing dropbacks than the Bills. So the Bills are second. They're sacking opposing quarterbacks on 10.2% of their passing attempts. And the Bills have achieved this despite blitzing just 8.8%, the lowest blitz rate in the NFL. So the Bills are sacking opposing quarterbacks at 10.2%, at a 10.2% clip on passing attempts, and they've achieved it despite blitzing just 8.8% at the time, the lowest blitz rate in the NFL. Yeah. They're literally just rushing 4 and playing games, and not even playing games sometimes. They're just like, just go rush.
Straight rush.
And they just rush. That's it. Sometimes Von
or reactive rush, like we saw last night in the film room. Either straight rush, stunt, or just, hey, guys, react. React to what they're giving you and just play ball. And it's working.
Yes. Hey, we're playing a game up front. Go execute it. Hey, just go rush. Okay, one of my guys beat his guy. All right, cool. He's in. Hey, just go rush. Oh, this guy stepped inside. You know what? I'm going to make a read in this moment because based on his jab inside, he just took up the tackle on the guard. So let me flow outside. And then, I just walked into a sack. And you're seeing contributions from everyone on the defensive line. Yeah. Like literally anyone they put in, even these practice squad guys, you were seeing positives from the top, so the Von Millers, the Greg Rousseaus, Daquan Jones is arguably the best defensive lineman for the Bills. He leads the Bills in defensive line snap percentage at 66%. Groot and Vaughn are both second at 58.5. Like with all the injuries to the defensive tackles, they've had to lean on Daquan Jones, and he has responded in a variety of ways against both the run and the pass. Physicality, leverage, hand technique, some pass rush ability, playing gap and a half, making tackles, being a force player. Just so much of what you want to see from the interior has been encapsulated in who and what Daquan Jones has been. Mm-hmm. And then you extend it to everybody else. Tim Settle has played well when he's in there. Ed Oliver was in there briefly, but he looked very good. AJ Epenesa's improvement as a run defender really stepped up his game. Boogie Basham looks better this year. The Brandon Bryants, the Prince Emili's, like it just extends to almost everybody on this defensive line. There is something to like about seemingly everyone on this defensive line group. And it's huge. It's part of why this Bills defense has been so successful to start the year. Because again, if you can get pressure just with 4, that means you drop 7 into coverage and you always have the coverage advantage no matter what. Because even if an offense sends 5 out, right? Even if they just go regular spread and they only block with 5. So 5 offensive linemen plus the quarterback, that's 6. 11 minus 6 is 5. That means at max, they can send 5 out into the routes. Cool, you've got 7 to cover 5. Let alone if they bring 1 less. Cool, you got 7 covering 4 or maybe 7 covering 3. Because you can play games with, bluff and pressure and simulateds and creepers and all these things to take advantage and dictate protection and force the offense's hand. And it all starts because the Bills can win up front with 4 against the pass, but also in their run fits. And yeah, it's a positive domino effect and chain reaction, like you said, with what they're doing up front. Benefits the linebackers, benefits the secondary. They're a huge, patient zero for the success of this Bills defense this year. And they're going to have to be, even when Tre'Davious White comes back, we don't know what Tre'Davious White we're going to get. Micah Hyde is done for the year. That's a huge blow, no matter who replaces him. And, we got to see what that secondary looks like and what that back end looks like. But as of this point, the front 4 and the defensive line in general is just absolutely rolling every single week against the run and the pass. And it opens up and unlocks so much for this Bills defense. So yeah, that stock, I think it was an easy decision for both of us to be like, who are the top 2 position groups? Boom, linebacker, defensive line, pretty easy. Yeah. Absolutely crushing it. And this defense has been phenomenal. And where the offense as a whole has been stuck in the mud at times these last 2 weeks, the defense continues to just pull them through, pull them out, bail them out, continue to make plays. And then hopefully the offense turns things around and we get a nice marriage of offense and defense.